Welcome back to the course. This week we will discuss the economic aspects of the energy system. In today's lecture I will introduce you to the concept of electricity markets. The learning objectives for today are as follows. First, I will challenge you how market principles can be applied to electricity. This creates so-called electricity markets. And then we are going to look into the different marketplaces for electricity. For any market, we have consumers and producers. Consumers are people who need a certain good, and producers are parties who provide these goods. This principle applies to electricity as well. On the consumer side, people need electricity and are willing to pay for it. Similar to other markets, there is a certain demand and therefore a certain price that consumers are willing to pay. On the producer side, we have companies who sell electricity to the consumers. The first entities in the chain are the generators who generate electricity. This electricity is then sold into the market. Often there are also middlemen, retailers who purchase electricity from the generators to sell it to the end consumers. So, what defines how this trade will take place? Well, as in other marketplaces, in an electricity market, the same rule of supply and demand governs the market. This rule of supply and demand dictates how many units are being produced and how many units are being consumed by consumers. In the case of electricity markets, the units being traded consist of a certain amount of electricity. So, the electricity market is the virtual marketplace that connects producers and consumers. Producers supply electricity. Different producers have different quantities for sale and attach different prices to their product. This is called the supply curve. Consumers are willing to pay for electricity. Each consumer attaches a different value to it. This generates the demand curve. Producers and consumers meet on the electricity market where the trade is being made. We have different types of electricity markets. First, we have the wholesale market. Wholesale markets are governed by the sale of large quantities of electricity. This electricity is sold by the generators who produce electricity in large quantities. Buyers are, for instance, industrial companies who need large quantities of electricity, but also electricity retail companies purchase electricity. They sell the purchased electricity to the end consumers like households and small businesses. In the wholesale market, a large variety of contracts exist. Generators and buyers are free to negotiate the contract they need. In this graph on top, you see the different generators. In a market there is freedom of choice and competition. Similarly, in the wholesale electricity market, there is competition between generators. There is a choice for buyers of electricity. Retail and industrial companies select the generation company of their choice for purchasing the electricity they need. The wholesale market is the virtual place where this trade happens. A second electricity market is the retail market. The retail market is the market where households and small businesses are being supplied. Because the amount of energy they need is rather small, households do not contract their electricity directly with the generators. They purchase electricity with retailers. For households, there's also a variety of contracts possible. The type of electricity contract that you agree to sign with your retail company determines how your electricity bill will look like. Retail companies themselves are being supplied in the wholesale market. They forward the electricity, so to speak, and sell it to households and businesses. This is what we call the retail market. Both markets are represented in this slide. At the top, we have the wholesale market where the generators sell to retailers and industrial consumers. And on the second level, we have retailers selling electricity to end consumers in the retail market. The electricity market represents economic transactions taking place. These transactions run through retailers, but physically, the electricity generated by generators is fed into the transmission grid and then transported through the network to the end user, connected to the distribution grid. So the physical flow goes from the generator to the end users. But the market defines who owns the electrons that are used by consumers. This question is addressed by the economic transactions. Now we have learned about the wholesale market and the retail market. These markets deal with different types of buyers and consumers. But we also have the time component, because electricity is traded in forward markets. Electricity can be traded ahead for days, for months, or even years ahead. And when we approach real time, the moment the electricity is delivered and consumed, there's also the so-called day-ahead market, the spot market. When generators or retailers still have surplus electricity, they can trade it on the day-ahead market to get their portfolio in balance. Moreover, the spot market also has traders who sell or buy electricity depending on the generation portfolio for the delivery day. So, in this lecture, we have identified the different types of electricity markets and their time horizon. In the next videos, you will learn more about the operation of these markets and about other aspects like the integration of renewable energy.